Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to Ventspils nafta and Latvijas kuģniecība webinar. Today we are hosted by Mr. Robert Kirkup, the chairman of the Ventspils nafta and Latvijas kuģniecība management board, and Mr. Paul Thomas, the member of Latvijas kuģniecība management board. During the webinar, you will be informed about Ventspils nafta and Latvijas kuģniecība latest activities and financial results of the third quarter 2014. But before the presentation begins, a quick reminder for those who have joined us for the first time. Right after the presentation, we will open the floor for a questions and answers session. Please use the chat box on your right side of the screen to send in questions. We have also received questions via email and investors portal naudaslietas.lv that will be given preference. We will address the rest of the questions afterwards. Gentlemen, I invite you to proceed with the presentation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here again and to the second webinar of 2014. I'd like to start with the first slide, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but those aren't. This is basically an organogram of Ventspils nafta. It shows the corporate structure, and you have in the main box here, which I'm pointing to, Ventspils nafta. And you have the three daughter companies. I think it's important at this stage just to outline the main shareholders of Ventspils nafta. In reality, our 50% shareholder is Vitol Group through Euromin Holding with their 49.98% shareholding, and Latvijas Nafta Transit with 43.25%. I don't believe there are any other major changes in the past year. If you look down below, Ventspils nafta in reality has three daughter companies, Ventspils nafta Terminals, Latvian Shipping Company, and Latros Trans. So an overview of the Ventspils nafta group. We have Latvian Shipping Company, Latvijas kugnieciba, and we'll go into more detail on them in the next few minutes. But basically, it's a company of 16 modern tankers with approximately 700 full-time employees. Latros Trans is a pipeline business, and the pipelines run predominantly from the border with Belarus to the coast in Ventspils. And that leads into Ventspils nafta Terminals, which is the largest terminal in the Baltics currently, and it has 1.2 million cubes of storage capacity and can take multiple types of product. I thought we'd just keep this this picture in here just to inform those who aren't very aware of the business. We're a service business, and we run predominantly, as I said, from the Belarusian border through to the coast, where we load vessels through the terminal. Latvian Shipping Company, many people ask the question of how linked it is to the business, but in reality it runs totally independently from the other two companies. Here is another sort of picture we've used before, and I think we use it here really to reinforce the message that in reality the majority of Ventspils nafta is actually a services company. So we provide a service to our clients who runs oil through the pipeline to a terminal where we offer the service of storing clients gas and oil, clients oil, and then providing the service to load their products onto vessels. So you can see here on the top right we have railways, and the railways load into Ventspils nafta Terminal. Then we have the pipeline, which provides up to 5 million tons, or just over 5 million tons a year. And then we have the tanks, and then it's loaded onto vessels. So we're very much a services company. And I think there are some questions on that later on, which shows that people aren't necessarily really clearly aware that that's what we are as a services company. Now we move on to the main part of the presentation, which is the financial performance of Ventspils nafta. Throughout the third quarter, market conditions remain challenging with continued pressure on margins. Revenue fell slightly. A lot of this is actually because of the fact that we sold 2 ships over the year. EBITDA remained stable at 30–35%. We benefited predominantly in our Latros Trans from the strength of the US dollar, but also when you're looking at our earnings here in euros, our shipping charters are actually in US dollars, so we're benefiting in that sense. Goals for 2014 and our achievements. As we said earlier in the year, we were going to mainly look at the corporate structure of the company to see where we felt there was some needed changes. We carried out things like changing all our shares to euros, which everybody needs to do, I think, within 2 years. We've managed to achieve that within 6 months. We've done share capital reductions throughout the group. The last one will be done by Ventspils nafta terminal by the 18th of December. This allows us to, where relevant, to repatriate unused revenues or unused cash to the major shareholders, which was Ventspils nafta. We've also had sale of non-core business assets, which would look at things like the sale of Jacobus Street, which we'll discuss later, and also Medical Invest, which people have asked lots of questions about. We have consolidated the whole group into one office on Elizabeth Street, Elizabeth number 1, and there are now Ventspils nafta in there, Latvian Shipping Company, Latvian Ship Management, and Latvijas Trans, and we have a new company that joined, which is Vitol Baltics, and we'll discuss them a little bit later. So there are now 5 companies in that one office. Outlook plans for Q4 2014. Continue to streamline the business. The sale of the remaining crude oil, as I'm sure you're aware, Latvijas Trans has successfully moved all the crude oil out of the pipeline. If I go back to this picture here, there is a line in green to Mažeikiai, and that was full of crude oil, which hasn't been used, has been flowing for many years, and that has been successfully pumped out with the assistance of Orlen in Lithuania, and our share was pumped out to Mažeikiai into tank, and from there loaded onto rail cars and moved to Ventspils. Half of it has already left in a vessel and been sold. The other half will be moved out and sold in the early part of 2015. So I'll move back to here. Where are we? So reevaluation of the group's long-term assets in line with market conditions. We're looking at predominantly at LRT, the pipeline business. By the end of 2015, we're looking at having written down the assets of the company to predominantly 0. We will have a remainder of cash in the business to cover any liabilities, but that is the long-term intentions. The shipping company, we will be just doing that depending on market conditions. There's always questions about our long-term contracts. This is really with the pipeline business. LRT, they have ongoing contract with VTS, and also I'm pleased to report that we're close to concluding agreement on continued use of VNT by VTS. So the terminal will be used for next year. Outlook for 2015. A challenging market environment. I think if we look at the geopolitical situation, we're all aware of the problems currently being experienced in our sphere. These are sanctions to Russia, predominantly by the US and European Union and other countries. And we know that the Russian government have stated, and this is not a new development, but they stated over 10 years ago that they were intending to use their own ports for as much of, if not all of their export of their own products. Obviously a concern for our business is that they accelerate this, and potentially over the next few years we will see product moving away from our services to Russian ports. Obviously that is a serious threat to our business and something I think we need to highlight. As such, we do expect transshipment volumes to decrease. We're not clear exactly what that means. very pessimistic view would be something like 2.5–3 million tons for 2015. We are hopeful that with our predominant shareholder Vitol, that they will be able to, where possible, keep flows of oil heading in our direction. But it is worth highlighting that we do not have any guarantees of shipment volumes. As such, this goes into the next point, which is reviewing business opportunities. At Ventspils Nafta Terminal, they'll be working exceptionally hard to continue on cost cutting. They are also looking at new business opportunities along with their major user, VTS, which is loading oil products into trucks, and they've been successfully doing that for the past 3 or 4 months. This moves on to Vitol Baltics. We're very pleased to report that Vitol has opened an office in Riga. They're co-located with us in the same building, and their intention is to continue providing services to the Vitol group, helping manage their operations of their oil through the Latvian territory, and also to look at the possibility of regional trading. That means trading within the Baltics of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So this is an exciting development, and I'm hopeful that, although we don't expect it to be a rapid start, but I would hope that over the next few years this will develop into a significant business, and that would also help Ventspils Nafta's daughter companies of Latros Trans and Ventspils Nafta Terminal. We go on to the challenging market of Latros Trans. As I said, we're looking potentially at dismantling one of our pipelines. We know that as a business we do have the obligation to maintain all our pipelines and avoid any environmental issues. And one of the obligations is if a pipeline is not used, we may well have to dig it up and remove it. So we're looking at the possibility of starting that in the first quarter of 2015. Now we'll move on to Latvian Shipping Company. Financial and business performance. Positive cash flow, notwithstanding the challenging market environment. Revenues decreased mainly due to fewer vessels. As you can see, we're only down to 16 vessels. So that's moving down from 2 years ago of 20 vessels. So I think one of the exciting developments within shipping is that ship management have taken over 2 vessels for management, and they came from a joint venture between Vitol and Grindrod, and I think that shows the commitment of Ventspils Nafta main shareholder Vitol to try and support the businesses here in Latvia. You look at cash position, quite healthy at $40 million. However, this is in reality held within a ring fence of a financial a loan package for our vessels, so it's actually not available to us to use as yet. Financial strategy: continue to focus on tidying up the balance sheet, sell of non-core assets. As I mentioned earlier in the last webinar, we have sold Jacoba Street, and that provided a revenue of I think 1.8 million euros to the group. We've also sold Medical Invest, which was an investment in a medical facility. We were a minor shareholder, and it was providing no revenue for the company. As such, we felt it was better to sell, and we managed to get a net revenue of 400,000 euros. Earlier in the year, we had the partial settlement of the Antonio Gramsci corporate case for 40 million euros, which has helped our balance sheet. We have had to revalue the investment in LNT. We don't believe the share is actually liquid, and we've had to use the latest information available from them for values. We will continue to assess that as time goes by. Paul will discuss this later, but we do have some additional fleet impairments throughout the year, but that is very much a market-led calculation. I think if you look at our profit before exceptionals, we're looking at a similar number to last year, slightly down, but it's looking relatively healthy. And it's just the valuations of our vessels that keep going up and down. Well, predominantly down. That leads us into the presentation of Paul.
Thank you, Robert, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar. As Robert has already highlighted, the fleet consists of 16 modern tankers now with a current age of 7 years. We have approximately 700 seagoing personnel, of which over 90% of Latvian origin, and we have approximately 50 shore-based staff in the Riga office. Okay, this just gives you a general business update. Our general chartering policy remains unchanged, and we continue to look to utilise the Latvian shipping fleet predominantly on longer-term time charter contracts as opposed to short-term spot voyage contracts. So typically the difference between a time charter and a spot would be 12 months versus a maximum of 30 days. We believe this is the best strategy for Latvian shipping. It provides steady cash flow over a fixed period of time, and this certainly protects Latvian shipping from negative market fluctuations and ensures that our quarterly payment obligations to our mortgage lenders are never compromised. And secondly, time charter hire payments are payable typically 15 to 30 days in advance, whereas spot voyage freight is payable in arrears. So at the end of Q3 2014, 88% of the fleet were employed on time charter contracts with an average time charter employment period of 8 months. Robert's also just mentioned as well that our affiliate LSE Ship Management has now been contracted to technically manage 2 third-party product tankers with the possibility of 2 further vessels in 2015, and this will increase the revenue base of our affiliate. Looking to the future, the company remains focused on divesting itself of any non-core shipping assets so it can focus 100% on what it sees as its core business going forward, i.e. shipping. Moving on to just generally on a macro level, the product tanker market overview. Q1 to Q3 2014 has been very disappointing for ship owners in the product tanker segment. However, having most of the Latvian shipping fleet on time charter has enabled our company to escape this downturn in earnings. Somewhat against expectations, Q4 has seen an upsurge in demand for refined products, partly due to seasonal factors, longer ton miles, cheaper refined products, and increased demand for gasoline in the USA. And this activity has helped to improve earnings for ship owners, and we are hopeful that this trend continues into 2015. Now, on a macro level, the reasons for a generally weaker shipping market throughout 2014 have been well documented. The IEA, which is the International Energy Agency, trimmed its projections for growth in global oil demand for 2014 from 1.2 to 0.7 million barrels per day. Similarly, Eurostat, which is the EU Statistics Office, cited continued minimal growth for the Eurozone. Additionally, we've seen the price of Brent crude drop from over $110 a barrel in mid-June to close to $70 a barrel today. So if one believes that the above factors taken in combination are an indicator of less demand for refined oil in the future, then one can see how ship owners' earnings have and possibly will be impacted in the future. In this discussion, we also need to highlight the impact fleet growth may have on the supply-demand picture. There was an increase in new building orders in recent years, and we're now seeing the fleet size grow by 15% since 2012. And we still have an order book representing 21% of the existing fleet. But thankfully, we are now seeing a slowing in the ordering of product tankers. As always, it's a simple statement to make, but increasing demand for refined products in the future will be key if these new additions to the product tanker fleet are to be absorbed without negatively impacting on earnings. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, gentlemen. I will proceed with the questions in the order they were received. But before, I would like to remind you that you can send in questions in the chat box on the right side of your screen. The first question: what was the purpose of SIA Medical Invest sale, and is the company planning to continue the process of its asset sales? What could be the next targets to sell?
Thank you. The purpose of selling this was revenue generation. We believed that Medical Invest didn't offer us any real value. It wasn't making any money. It's non-core asset. And as we stated earlier in the year, we were looking at focusing on our core assets, and we were going to sell, where possible, non-core assets. And then it goes on to the second part of your question. We will look to sell other non-core assets where we find them. That predominantly means property. As you possibly aware, we have in the group, we have some properties which are actually held up in a court process. If and when those are returned to the company's management, we will look to sell those.
Thank you. The next question: how is Ventspils nafta terminal and Latvian shipping company affected by the decreasing oil prices? Experts say that continuous decrease could lead to some serious trouble, even a new worldwide crisis. What is your opinion on that?
Thank you. I think it's important to go back to the earlier part of my presentation when I highlighted that we're a services company. So when we are transshipping our clients oil across or through our system of Ventspils nafta, it still remains theirs. So we are not affected by the cost up and down of their product. And that's the same in the terminal. It's a storage facility. What I would say is for a lot of our clients who are moving their own product, the lower it is, the less finance costs they require to manage their business. So it actually helps them. And I think if you look at oil prices, it's predominantly the producer that will suffer with lower oil prices, and it's in fact the consumer who will benefit. It's ultimately a zero-sum game, but it's the producer that suffers, and I think we don't. And I think if we look at the shipping company, perhaps I'll pass across to Paul, who has far more experience than me on it.
Yeah, I think I've partly answered this question already in my macro overview, and really it's just whether you believe that the drop in the price of crude oil and the International Energy Agency's projections actually do come to pass, because if there is less demand for refined products, that will negatively impact on shipping.
Thank you. We will proceed with the questions we have received previously in email and in Portal Naudas Lietas. What's the status of the court proceedings with the Belarusians about the ownership rights of the oil in the pipeline? Wasn't it planned to finish this process till autumn this year?
This ultimately is a claim by the Belarusians, so it's not actually in the control of Latvijas Trans. It has they won their first two, or Latvijas Trans have won the first two parts going to the courts, and the final appeal is with the Supreme Court of Latvia, and we'll await their decision, which we are hoping is within the first few months of 2015.
Thank you. We proceed with questions. Are there any more specific plans in relation to the use of the pipeline after the oil has been pressed out of it?
We referred earlier in the year and at the potential to use part of the pipeline, of the crude oil pipeline, for gas. We have tested 10 kilometers of the pipeline, and it is suitable for gas. It's just a matter of finding the businesses that could actually help develop that. So physically it's possible, and now more about a business use for it.
Considering the political activities of Russia to spend speed up the transfer from usage of foreign ports to usage of their own ports? Aren't Ventspils nafta terminals and Latvijas nafta transit under a risk of losing their business?
We've already discussed this. I think the obvious answer is yes, and yes again and yes again. It is a major threat to our business. It is the Russian government's stated intention to use their own ports for that to ship their own products. However, we believe that we offer first-class service. We believe that we can and are cheaper than the Russian infrastructure and ports. We believe that we can maintain that. So we hope from a business perspective that we are able to attract oil. We are also reliant on our shareholder Vitol to use where possible their influence to try and attract flows of oil. So through their purchases, they have in the past attempted to influence which direction that flows, and we hope they continue to be successful at that.
Considering the constant Latvian shipping company losses, wouldn't it be more beneficial for Ventspils Nafta to sell its shares in Latvian shipping company? Have there been such offers made, and have they been considered?
I think if you're referring to Paul and myself, we're employees with the management. We're not the shareholders. I think this is a question that really should be addressed to the shareholders of the company. Ventspils Nafta is 50% shareholder of them, so you'd have to refer to their shareholders and then the wider shareholders at large.
And now we will proceed with the questions that are in chat box. When Lasco planned to renew and or order new vessels, how do you see Lasco after 20 years? 0 vessels or few left for scrapping?
Okay, well, I think to answer this question, and actually there's a question further down that's directly linked. There's a number of interrelated questions here, to be honest with you, but I think the first thing to understand is the current cash position of the company is just over $40 million US. One of the key covenants with our lending banks is that the company must always have a minimum of $25 million in cash available. So that really only leaves $15 million, which is not sufficient funds to enable us to purchase new ships. Typically, if you was to buy a new product tanker today, that would cost you $35 million, and even if you was to obtain 50% financing, you would still need to find $17.5 million. So in truth, the figures currently don't stack up to allow us to order new vessels. So that's the answer to the first part of the question. How do you see Latvian shipping after 20 years? Well, I would hope that we would have, certainly way before that time, been able to have sufficient funds to invest in shipping. But today we are unable to do that. What was the last question? It's moving. Let's scroll down. And yes, to the last part of the question, would we be left with 0 vessels or few left for scrapping? Again, I would say I would hope in 10, 20 years' time, Latvian shipping would be a going concern. I fully expect it to be, and I would imagine that we would have new additions to the fleet. But at this current time, we have to be realistic and say we do not have sufficient funds to do that.
Thank you. The next one is rather a comment. Why are you all the time so pessimistic? Market for MR tankers, World's Call reached 190 record high.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments for that?
Yes, I do. Yeah. In my products tanker market overview on a more which covers matters on a specific level as to what's happened Q1, Q2, Q3, and how against expectations Q4 has been a very, very strong quarter, and there's been definitely an upsurge in rates. So yes, our management reports in Q1, Q2, Q3 were pessimistic, but even in our financial reports for Q3, we did make the point that Q4 had certainly become much better ability to achieve greater earnings. Do I think this is here to stay for the long term? I think if you look at the analysis, I'm referring to the International Energy Agency, etc. You're seeing a eurozone that still seems to be slipping back into recession. It's very hard to be overly bullish in the shipping products sector.
Thank you. When do you plan to buy out company, before dividends or after?
Well, I work for Latvian Shipping, so who's we? I'm not sure who they mean we. When you, I'm not sure who that refers to.
I think that's another question to talk to the shareholders about.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not appropriate for us to comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they mean by you. Do they mean VN? Again, that's a question for the VN shareholders, I think, is the answer to that question.
Okay, we'll proceed with the questions. According to Gibson Reports, October TCE, or in other words, time charter equivalent, was $17,000 for MRS, but end of November, TCE $37,500. It's not so bad, right?
No, it's not so bad, right? I make you right. It's been a very good quarter for ship owners, as highlighted in my products tanker market overview, and as in the market looks today, I think there's every chance that this strong market will continue into Q1 2015.
Thank you. Have you ever considered to move the head office of Latvian shipping company to, let's say, London and manage it from there? Latvian shipping company business is a very global one after all.
The simple answer to that question is no. We have a very skilled workforce in our offices in Riga. We have a very, very skilled seagoing personnel. With communications these days, there's no reason why we can't run Latvian shipping from Riga, as opposed to somewhere like London. London is just one of many trading centres for shipping. You have London, Geneva, Houston, New York, Singapore. No, we're very happy here in Riga, especially with the quality of staff that we have at our disposal.
Thank you. We proceed with the question from Iron Aglitis. This question will be to Mr. Robert Kirkup. You mentioned there was a partial settlement with Antonio Gramsci for, I think you said, 14 million euros. When do you expect to complete this legal dispute?
We have a lot of legal disputes within the group, with some former management board members and shareholders. So I don't think I really want to talk about any specific legal dispute at this stage. What I'd like to say is that we are, in discussion with various parties, and I do hope that over the years ahead we will resolve them, whether that's direct negotiation or whether that's through the courts. But we are positive that we will conclude these.
Thank you. We proceed with the questions. The next one is as well from Aaron Aglitis. If you expect transit through the pipeline to fall by as much as 50%, how do you expect this to affect profitability next year?
That's a good question. I think the positive side for next year is that we will have about 30,000+ tons of crude oil being sold. So the cash side of the business, that will look positive. We're not yet aware of the exact volumes going through. We think currently our break even is around 4 million tons. So I think that's obviously I have a target. We will be looking at our cost base, and where possible we will look to to make us more efficient and also be working for that sort of slightly smaller size of throughput.
Thank you. We proceed with the questions. Can you describe Latvian shipping company loans, covenants, and how do you plan to use 40 million USD free cash?
Yeah, I really think we should just focus on the main covenant, which I've already mentioned, which is that we should always have a minimum cash available to the company of 25 million. So in effect, we have 15 million dollars, which is freely available, and we should always, to clarify, we should always be above the min $25 million. It doesn't mean we can utilize that $15 million. So that's the key. That's the key loan covenant. All the other covenants are not such big issues, which we fully comply with.
We have one more question left. I will remind you, if you have any more questions, please type them in the chat box so we can ask them to our hosts. Have you mentioned that Vital? You have mentioned that Vital is planning to give 2 ships for Latvian shipping company to manage because Latvian shipping company has extra capacity. How this will affect Latvian shipping company's earnings?
Okay, so I think the earnings are expected at 150,000 US dollars per vessel. So we're looking at revenue for the company of net of about 300,000 for these 2 vessels, and we're hoping that by summer of next year there could be 2 more vessels. That is very much dependent on how ship management or Latvian ship management perform. If they impress the owners of the vessels, then there's a good chance we get more.
Thank you very much. As I can see, there are no questions. Maybe we could wait a couple of moments. Just maybe somebody would ask something else. As I see there are no more questions, all questions are answered. Record of the presentation will be available in investors portal naudas-lietas.lv. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for answering questions and for the presentation. I wish you good evening.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much.